Faith, hope, and luck. I think the point is that we get this odd mixture of secular, holy, biblical, and osmosis. And it creates a value system that we live by. This morning, we want to talk a bit about sometimes when we don't put our faith together right, you can get quite shook up. Does that make sense? Yeah, I believe this, and it doesn't happen that way at all. I got shook up this week with Linda. Thank you. I decided I was going to be healthy and practice some emotional hygiene. And so I did a hobby. And I like to build stuff, so I'm working with electronics. And when I was in high school, I was a group of kids that was bad behaving, but got good marks. And we built a computer in high school, and we did it by aging tubes. And they were telling us about this brand new invention coming out called a chip. And so this stuff I was working with, the amount of stuff that they had on these little boards like this, and I built a light for here out of a little bulb like that, which can put out more light than these with 100 watts instead of 750 watts. And so I was looking at this board, and I'm showing it to Linda, and I said, none of this stuff was available when I went to school. She said, that was a long time ago. Ouch, that's right. You can have life happen to you, and it can shake you up. So that was my shake-up this week. That was a long time ago. Hey, I built my first electric car, my only electric car, and I was in grade 8. And I got thinking, that would be nice to do now. And I've been looking at guys who build their own electric cars and what they go through. And the only problem with that is Linda finds my hobbies quite expensive. And when she wants a hobby, I buy her a paintbrush and a ball of yarn, and and I want a hobby, it's big bucks. Faith, hope, and luck, you can get shook up. And why is that? I think that we construct a belief system, whether we believe in God or not. You talk to someone or some religion or anything, you say, now tell me how you think the world is put together. And they say, well, I think that, that's kind of a belief system, a faith, or I believe, or I've always thought. We all have some construct that we have put together which explains to us how the world works. And the problem with that is, what are you leaning that belief system up against? What's holding that up? And what is going to happen if all the presuppositions for your faith system are not true? Everybody has a belief system which has some cause and effect. Whether it's karma or whether it's I exercise, meditate, and eat carrots, and this happens. We have a cause and effect structure that we understand in life. Now, as Christians, we have something different and something unique when it comes to our faith structure, our belief structure. And we're going to get to it at the end, but if it's not built right, it will collapse and you will struggle. If it is built right, you will survive anything, and it will not collapse, and you will be still standing when everything else has been leveled. That's why it's important to have the right foundation for your faith. How many have heard or know of people who say, I lost my faith? You used to have faith, you used to believe. You've heard that? Yeah. Why would that happen? And I think that when you look at how a person loses their faith, you can realize that there is something going on that is not right. I'm going to start preaching from my notes. Can I steal your notes? Yeah. Thanks. Here it is. There's two reasons why they start to get shaken up in their faith. Number one reason is that they have a lifestyle conflict with their construct. And so how does that happen? Well, you grew up, mom and dad taught you, and you believe it's always wrong to lie or be deceptive or maybe not just tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. You start working in a business or a whole industry where it relies on deception. And so there you are, selling cars. Freudian slip, just kidding. That was a joke. Oh, so good to see you back. That's why I put that in there. What do you do with your faith structure, your construct, which has guided you? You're in an industry, and you look around, and you got a problem. Either I got to stay here but feel guilty all the time, or I got to quit my job. That's not always a good thing to do. Or I'm not sure that it was all that wrong anyways, and maybe mom and dad overstated the case, and besides, nobody here seems to be bothered by it. So what you decide to do is keep your job and go with the flow. Problem solved. Except for the fact that you have changed your whole belief structure. And we find that many times in our life we make little alterations to our job system. And to a certain extent, what happens is first we change our behavior, then we change our belief. We believe it's wrong to move in with somebody before you're married. And parents told you that, you have that belief system, and even though your personal adherence to it was a little iffy, still, until you're confronted with it, now you have to do something. And you're sitting around having coffee with the people you work with. You just casually happen to mention, no, I don't think it's right to be living together until you're married. And everybody sitting around having coffee puts their coffee cup down and looks at you like, and what? And all of a sudden you realize you're about the only person who holds that weird position. And conversation picks up and goes on like nothing happened, except for the fact you got outed, and now you know you're the odd man out. And again, you have this discognizance. What are you going to do with it? And way too often we change what we believe and what we act on, but it always comes by the actions, I should say usually change first. Are you with me? And then we bring around the belief system. We don't change because of research. We don't change because we understood God wrong, or we don't change because the first belief system was wrong. We change because we started to live or desire something different, then we changed our belief. You tracking with me? We don't change because we read the Bible and it says to change and drift that way. First we behave, then we believe. Now, we could call that circumstantial faith. In other words, this is what I believe unless the circumstances change. Should they change, then I believe this. And another way circumstantial change comes up is we're praying, we want God to do something. We're not sure how this works. And we've been taught that God always does this. And we've been taught God never does that. And we're living through life, and all of a sudden God does do that, and God doesn't do that. And we're going, wait a minute. Wait a minute. He's not acting the way that my notebook says he should be. And I checked all three boxes and went to church and put a $5 on the plate and helped the lady across the street. Now my formula is breaking down here. And so God is not operating the way God should be operating. I've done all the things. I've checked all the boxes, and I've tried to win God's favor. Went to church. I have no idea what that guy's saying, but I was in church. And you saw it, right? Why didn't you? I did this. You didn't do that. And we have this construct in our head of, if I behave this way, God behaves that way. If I do A, B, C, and D, he does E, F, G, and H. And we did A, B, C, D. And God didn't do E, F, G, H. And now the circumstances aren't working out. Circumstantial faith is a fragile, wimpy thing that doesn't hold in turbulent times or in periods of change. Circumstantial faith has several problems. Some of them are that we are terrible at interpreting what events mean and why they happen. How many of you guys had something happen to you? At the time it happened, this is the worst thing that ever happened. I can't believe how bad it is. My life will never be the same again. My life is over. From now on, my life sucks. 3 years later, you're turning around and looking back and saying, thank God. That turned out to be good. We're lousy at figuring out what's good and what's bad. And we're even worse at that, at understanding time scales without even understanding eternity. I mean, we've been praying since 30 seconds, and that was Sunday. This is Monday. And Tuesday, now, God, I've been praying since Sunday, and this is Thursday. By Friday, we better be getting it on here. And I kind of need stuff. I know I was a little late bringing it to you, and it's kind of an emergency, and I do need it, but we don't have good time scale. And so that will mess up your fragile circumstances because we don't understand the circumstances. We don't understand God's timetable. I love Joseph. 15 years. Don't stick me in jail and forget about me. I mean, it's way past Wednesday, and I've been praying since Sunday, and this is 15 stinking years. Do you smell this down here? You've deserted me. And you can say, yeah, but look at what God did for Joseph and through Joseph, and yeah, but if you were with Joseph, it wasn't that cool. It stunk and it was cold, and his life was in the balance at any minute. And for 15 years, it looked for all the world like he had been deserted by God, except for he never abandoned God, because somewhere deep inside of him, he knew God existed, and he stayed on course, stayed on course, stayed on course. I believe he'd have died staying on course, except that God had a plan for his life. And in God's time, not Joseph's time or my time or this Wednesday, God came in and did what he intended to do all the time. I think also we have to interpreting the voice of God. Does God want me to do this? Or God told me I was supposed to marry you. Good. You better tell my wife too. We are fuzzy. And Linda and I see each other, and we can misinterpret each other. My girls, they not only misinterpret, they don't understand me. But anyways, face to face, eyeball to eyeball, you can have misinterpretations. Now you move into your spirit connecting with the Spirit of God. I'm telling you, if you're not careful, you can really get lost, misunderstand the circumstances, not know what's going on. And if your faith is built on circumstances, I pray God does that, then you are going to get shook up big time because you have built a faith of circumstances and it doesn't stand up. Now take out your insert with me, if you would, and I didn't number the pages, so let's all guess. On the inside, second half, you see the red ink. All of my sermon notes, red ink is scripture. Let's read this, and read this so loud you wake up the person beside you, okay? Let's read it together. Therefore, great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. Now, he's going to give you a faith, a belief system, and a construct that you can hold to firmly. He didn't say, hope, hang on and hope. He said, I'm going to give you something solid here. Here is the foundation that we have built. It doesn't matter what goes on around you. Our faith is built on, and I had to resolve this, and I don't know, maybe you didn't, but I did. I had to deal with the historical fact of Jesus Christ. Did he ever even exist? Turns out, even most liberal scholars, well, yeah, there was a guy named Jesus. Then, did he live, did he die, and did he rise again? And that's the fact that our faith is based on. And those things have to be resolved. God doesn't ask for blind faith. He said, these things are written so that you may believe. He left the evidence behind so that you didn't have to take a leap off of a cliff. But he says, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. I have left the proofs of what I say it is true. And then when you have resolved the fact that Jesus Christ walked the face of the earth, he not only was crucified, but he came back to life again. And then he said, I am the Son of God. I have died for your sins, and I'm going to return to heaven. And he took off in front of hundreds of witnesses so there would be no mistake. Now you can say, did he or didn't he? Back then you could say, yeah, Myrtle, Harold, Bob, Charlotte, they all saw him. Yeah, we were down there when he was crucified. There were thousands of us. 400 or 500 saw him take off. So yeah, now you can argue anything you want. But at the time the gospel was going out, why did it take over the world? First of all, because of the power of the Holy Spirit. And second of all, because they saw him. It was a fact. And they said, do you remember? He healed your Aunt Matilda. And you said, yeah, I never did like her. I wish he'd have healed Myrtle. But he was there. He did it. They saw him. It was a fact. And they built their faith on the fact of Jesus Christ. Circumstances can come or go. Life can be good or life can be bad. But Jesus walked the face of the earth. And he came back to life again. And he says, as I live, you shall also. And because he lives, we will. And he left behind us proof that our faith is solid. And so we do not look at the circumstances. A lot of that is set up by the one who hates you anyways. Don't get your eyes on the problem. Get your eyes on the solution. Your Father and the Son, Jesus Christ, who will send the Spirit down to see you through. Circumstances have nothing to do with our faith. God never intended us to rest our faith on what's going on around us. Some people say, I knew it was the will of God. Everything went fine. Tell Paul that. I've been hit with rods. They whipped the hide off me. They stoned me, thought I was dead. I've been in a shipwreck. I got bit by a snake. I got run out of town. Got thrown in jail. Yeah, life is good. It didn't matter because he went into the desert and he was taught by God. And his theology was solid. And he knew that he knew that he knew God was alive. And he placed his faith in the fact that Jesus walked the face of the earth, rose again, and he had a faith that was unshakable. You and I can have a faith which is unshakable. Why? Why? Look at this. Let's look at the last verse. Get your eyes off the circumstances and read this one as well. Oh, this verse is it. Read it with me. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author, perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Considering him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. There is nothing that you are going through that Jesus Christ has not experienced, only more of it. And he said, my grace is sufficient. I see the circumstances, but you need to experience my power. There is nothing larger. And Job, God and Job are arguing, and God was pretty hard on Job. Were you there when I hung wisdom? Were you there when I hung the four corners to you? Were you there when I did this, Job? You're speaking a little bit beyond your knowledge. And then he said, oh, by the way, Job, is anything too hard for God? What do you have that's too hard for God to handle? The answer is nothing. There's nothing in your life that should shake up your faith, including life. Would you stand with me? We've just started, but I need to tell you, in the next few weeks, we need to have a faith that's unshakable. We need to be filled with the Spirit. Because you have the Spirit of God which came in to begin to interact with Him, but you can have the Spirit of God where you can minister for Him. And we need to be not a passive bunch of people sitting in a cute white church singing Amazing Grace waiting for Jesus to come back. We need to be about the King's business and Satan's worst nightmare. As we just love people, he hates people. We love people. They can feel the difference between hate and the love of Jesus Christ through you. We can overcome the world simply by being like Jesus. And you need the power of His Spirit in you. As we go through this, we need to walk out of this in 4 or 5 weeks with a faith that will never shake till Jesus returns.